Hello, everybody. I have a really special guest today, Carrie Simpson, from Canada as well. She doesn't have that bad Canadian accent I have, so you are going to enjoy this show today. And I wanted to talk to Carrie because, we are in the inbound marketing side, as you know, guys, and I have always questioned like, hey, Dinesh, give us some script about cold calling and everything like that. And we somehow met in a conference with Carrie, and she was telling me that how successful cold calling can be if you do it right. So we had a chat, and I wanted to make sure that you guys are listening her wisdom about that. And just, I'm a curious guy. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. That before, like, Carrie, can you just tell us something about you, your past, and what you are doing right now, and then I'm going to be really efficient.
Okay, well, as Dennis said, my name is Carrie Simpson, and I'm the CEO of Managed Sales Pros. I started my sales career about 22 years ago. My first job was telemarketing for AT&T back when they were still called Unitel. And from there, I went into inside sales and field sales roles, and I started a cold calling service in 2000 when I had my first child, and I wanted to not go back to
Hmm.
work. I didn't want to pay for daycare. I didn't want to put my kid in full-time daycare. And I thought, well, what could I do that would be valuable to other organizations where I wouldn't have to leave the house? So I thought, well, you can break the sales process down into multiple steps, and the beginning of the step is cold calling, and that was actually the part that I was really good at. I never really was interested in the account management side of
Okay.
sales. I was actually very poor at it, but the door opening part I was always consistently good at. So I thought, well, there must be some companies that would be interested in that service. And my husband at the time was a recruiter, and he was working in this shared office space in Toronto. And I asked him if he would just go and talk to all of the people that worked in that shared executive
Yeah.
space and see could anybody use some sales support, would anyone like some cold calling assistance. And turns out all of them did. So I kind of lucked into I was an accidental entrepreneur there. And I could only really support one or two clients at a time, and that went on for a little while. And then a couple of years ago, we had a referral from managed services or from a marketing company that we were working with here locally in Winnipeg. They referred us to a managed service provider, and they asked, could we do some cold calling for them? And I like Googled managed services and said, oh, sure, yeah, we can do that, no problem.
Yeah.
And so we made all our mistakes very early on with that client, and he recommended us to a couple of his peer group members. He was an HTG peer
HTG
group member,
people.
and a few other HTG partners started working with us, and that's how we essentially built our business.
So basically, you are giving services to manage services to do cold calling and lead generation and lead nurturing and stuff like that, right? So,
Hmm.
so you know this whole thing. Perfect. So actually, my question a little bit, can you just because I have this kind of feeling that you have fears in your life, right? uh, the fear of standing in a podium and talk to many people. That's most of the time for folks is like more threatening than death or something like that. So it's like kind of interesting. I think the second is when you pick up the phone and call somebody totally stranger, right? So I don't know, just a little bit of hints and tips here, and we can go through to the whole process. Just I think that's the pivotal point that you said, like you were good at it. So can you learn it, or is just personality, or because that's for me it's just not working. So
Well, the only thing that we can't teach someone to do is be enthusiastic about cold
hmm.
calling. Everything else is just process, right? It's rinse and repeat. Once you create a model that works for you, you just educate your callers to that model. But you can't teach them to not fear the phone, and you can't teach them to enjoy calling. You're either going to or you're not. So what you're talking about is something that we describe as call reluctance here. So the idea that there's this negative connotation attached to telemarketing, right? Attached to like, well, I'm going to be bothering people, or they're not going to want to talk to me, or I'm going to mess up, I'm going to sound foolish. And there's ways to get through all of that. So the first way is to really develop what you're going to talk about. So have a script available to
Mm-hmm.
you. You don't want to read it word for word. But what we do here is create what we describe as talking points. So the
Okay.
first thing we do when we're going to put together a script for a new client is we go through their website and we take a black marker, and anything that isn't a fact, we get rid of, right? The best, the greatest, the most wonderful, blah, blah, all of that stuff. We just take a black marker and wipe right through it because that's not a quantifiable fact.
Okay.
You can't really prove that you're the best anything in the Detroit market, right?
Yeah.
So that's not really a fact, and
Yeah,
that's not something you want to
there are
say to a
a
client.
couple of BS like we are the most, user friendly and stuff like that. That's always like when we do websites as well, just garbage.
But
Those.
user friendly, I mean, what does that
Yeah,
mean? User
exactly.
friendly to me and user friendly to
Yeah, and the
you and user
best
friendly
customer
to my
support.
90-year-old grandma. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a very relative term. So it's not factual. You can't use it when you're cold calling.
Yeah.
So we take all of the items that a company provides us with, all of the marketing
Yep.
documentation, all of the information that they're going to disseminate out to their client base, and we create factual statements. And those are the only things that our callers are allowed to say on the phone. So what year were you founded in? That's a fact.
Okay.
How many people work for you? That's a fact. How big is your company? That's a fact. Who are your clients? That's a fact. You can't say we're the best, we're the greatest, we're the whatever. Like, you just really
Yeah.
can't quantify that. So first we create this document, and everything on that document is factual and vetted by the client. So we're never going to accidentally say something that isn't true, because the only things that we're going to talk about are the things that we put on this talking point document. And then we create an opener, and then objection handles for all of the things that people throw out. I'm not interested. I'm too busy to talk about this right now. We're too big for that. We're too small for that. There's all kinds of objections that organizations are going to throw out when you're cold calling into them. And as long as you have a response for all of those things, you don't have to worry about sounding foolish, because everything's right here in the playbook that you've created for that call. Call reluctance itself, you get over just by practicing. There's no way to get good at cold calling other than cold calling. And if you can network, you can cold call. If you can walk into a crowd of 50 people and start shaking their hands and passing out your business card and talking about how your services are going to benefit them, that's exactly what cold calling is. You're just doing it on the phone instead of in person. So if you can picture it like networking instead of like telemarketing, then you're already reframing it, right?
Yeah.
The goal here is to reframe the thing that you're doing every day and to find a little bit of fun in the activity. So I don't go into a telemarketing call hoping that I'm going to make a sale. I go in hoping that I'm going to learn something interesting, maybe make a friend, have a laugh. Don't take yourself too seriously. And remember that nobody remembers that you called them 20 minutes from now, right? They hang up the phone, you don't exist anymore. So if you said the stupidest thing in the world, or if you embarrassed yourself, or if you felt uncomfortable, that call is over now, and you've got 100 more to make. So you can't really dwell in the, oh, why did I say that? That sounded so ridiculous. Nobody cares. Move on.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Like, if you, because I'm a process guy, and if you, boil down this stuff in, opener, that makes lots of sense to me. Objection handling, those type of things. What I found, or what I'm thinking, is like, how we have as business executives we make decisions about cold calling, and what's our experience is probably how we did that. So I made cold calling. Every entrepreneur doing some sort of all of this stuff in the nobody's born as Apple, like 30,000 people company. Every company starts with a one CEO or president or whatever, founder. And so I did that, and as I told to many MSPs, CEOs try to do that. Like, okay, I have my Rolodex, I'm going to do whatever. First, I think that's really important to the missing piece, all this process part and all this script part. And the other thing, what I see is like, you can't really, or my observation, what you do is you sit down and you are going to call for 4 hours. So after like half an hour, you get to this mood, you get to this feeling, you have to make like, I don't know, 100 calls per day, or I don't know how many, but that's not how we do that usually. We have 2 or 3 and we try to cold call, it's not working, and I have to make a decision. Cold calling is just not working. And
Well, I don't think you could abandon any process over two or three attempts,
yeah,
right? You're
but you know that's probably as we operate, because because the other end I get lots of cold calls, and it's really funny that before our talk, I captured that two or three was able to sell me something like a meeting or whatever. And that's interesting because I think myself that I'm, totally I have every shield for somebody calling me and everything like that. But it's somehow, when I'm interested on something or if they can catch some kind of, problem I have, I'm open for that. So that's how. So you told us you're not selling anything on the coding. What you do?
well, there's a couple of different things that you're going to do on a cold call into an organization. So if you think about telemarketing, telemarketing is really the goal of a telemarketing call is an immediate action sale. So you can telemarket to things where I can just give you my credit card,
Yep.
a newspaper subscription, a magazine subscription. I don't know. I think somebody came by, I got my house painted that way. Um, but a managed services contract, you can't sell that
No,
on the
no.
phone. You're going to have to go sit down with them, talk to them about the value that you're going to bring to them, evaluate their network, see if you want them as a client. So it's not a telemarketing call. So what kind of call is it? The first call in, you're really going to do what we describe as mapping the organization. You want to identify who's going to make the decision.
Okay.
You want to qualify that opportunity. So one of the things that we really try to drill home here is you don't have to speak to the CEO to qualify an opportunity. You can talk to anybody that picks up the phone, anyone that'll take your call.
Okay.
So you can find out how many desktops do they have there, and you can use really casual questions like, you know what, before I speak with Danish, would you mind answering a couple of questions for me? I just want to make sure, like, I
Yep.
know we're going to play a little phone tag, and I want to make sure that we're going to be the right fit for your
Okay.
organization if
This
there's
makes
an
sense.
opportunity there.
Qualifying
How many
them.
computers do you have there? Right? That's a very non-threatening question. There's no proprietary information there. I'm not asking you for your bank account number, just how many computers are there. So if the person you're speaking with says, we've got like 5 computers, well, now you know that you don't want that lead, and you don't have to spend 10 calls
Yeah.
trying to get the CEO of this company on the phone. They only have 5 computers. Let it go. So
Okay.
you can talk to anybody that'll take your call to start laying the foundation to create the opportunity that you want there. So once you've determined that there's an opportunity, then the work starts. Now you have to get the decision maker on the phone, and you have to find out who that decision maker is. Is it the CEO of the company, or is it the controller? Like, who's going to be the best conversation for you at that point? As the business owner, you're at an advantage from a sales rep because you're calling peer to peer. You're not calling where there's a power imbalance, right? I'm not a sales rep hoping to get a scrap of the CEO's time, right? I am a CEO myself. I'm calling another CEO. We share
Yep.
the same business challenges. We are going to be able to collaborate and discuss things that a sales rep won't be able to talk about with a CEO. Like, as a business owner, when I call an MSP, I know what our services cost, and I know how they're going to have to budget for them, and I know what kind of questions I have to
Yes.
ask them to kind of get through the objections. As a sales rep, you probably never stayed up late at night wondering if you were going to make payroll next Friday.
Yep.
That's just not a challenge that you've ever experienced. So how do you have that kind of on the same level conversation? You can't. But as the business owner, if you're going to do your own cold calling, you're already at a place where you are equals. You don't
Yep.
have to worry about calling and bothering the CEO. You are calling to commiserate, you're calling to trade notes, you're calling to trade referrals, you're calling to build your network, and hopefully you're calling to build a relationship that will then result in a managed services contract somewhere down the road.
That's perfect what you are saying. Like we, so I when we started our MSP in 2012, like it was an MSP of our company stack, and I started to lead this whole thing. And what I was doing, I was calling all our peers and or networks, family business, YP or whatever was that, and try to have a conversation. And I never get rejected because I wanted to learn. I wanted to have interviews. Like we started like an initiative when we have this scoring system when you can map out like the client's IT management and IT traditional stuff in a score, like having a golden standard, like what's 100-point means and how much you have. And basically for those type of things was really easy to sell over a phone because like a gatekeeper, I was able to go through really quickly because like, hey, I would just, call him because I heard he's really great in that. Like he's an industry leader. I was in the conference, whatever, and I would like to talk to him because of an interview. And this type of thing was easy. For a sales rep, it would be hard. But as CEOs, I guess, and if you are not want what you said, like, close the deal or something like that, build relationship is way more easy to get somebody over the phone. And then the next step is not threatening, have an interview. The next step will be like a network assessment or different type of thing. And we can move forward because my observation is like now, and what people are saying to us as well, that now the IT problems are not really there. So like 5 years ago, of course, the network is slow, the internet is slow, softwares are not working, people can't do anything. That was a huge issue around, what the MSPs are doing. And right now, you call somebody and probably, I'm fine.
Well, 5 years ago it was a land grab, and now it's just displacement. Everybody has somebody or a process that they're already implementing.
Okay.
But I mean, the comeback for that is very simple. Oh, we already have somebody that does that.
Yeah.
First, you want to find out, what do they mean by that? Do they mean that they are already under a managed contract? And if so, find out when their contract expires, and then you know when to call them next. Find out why they made that buying decision. Why did they decide to work with that company? What did they like about it? If they had to make a decision again today, would they work with that company, or would they have made a different decision? There's all kinds of conversations you can have after that. And if it turns out they're under contract, but it's a break-fix contract, then you can begin to sell them on the on the value of a managed services agreement. But you're also, a company that's in a contract for 3 years isn't making a change unless something's gone horribly wrong. So that isn't really a sales lead. You have to let that go for a couple of years. If they're working with a guy who comes in once in a while, and they spent $500 on IT last year, that's not a lead either, right? You're not going to be able to come in and move a company that's paying, for support on an hourly basis that didn't need that much support. You're not going to be able to convince them of the value of managed services. They're not going to make the jump from $500 a month to $5,000 a month. You're not going to be able to make them come along quickly enough to make that a valuable call for you. So once you kind of figure out what they mean by we already have that, then you can start selling against we already have that. But first you have to figure out what that means. So if you assume that we already have that means they're comparing apples to apples, you're always going to put the phone down after they say, no, we're okay, we already have that. But if you can keep the conversation going on long enough, you can identify what do they have. Is it actually working for them? Is it the same as what you want to offer them, right? Is it an apples to apples comparison? And if it isn't, then you've got an opportunity to continue selling to them. But I mean, sometimes, we're fine means we're fine, right? They're happy with what they have. It's working for them. Sometimes they've got what we describe as an embedded provider. So if my mother's husband is doing our IT support, the odds on you bumping that contract are next to impossible. So you really want to identify where is your time going to be best spent. As an entrepreneur, you're not going to have time to make 100 calls every day. I don't, you don't. Like, you might, if you're lucky, have the time to make 20 calls a day. So you need to maximize those 20 calls. You want to make sure that you don't spend those 20 calls chasing down leads that are never going to be valuable for you.
Okay, first of all, where you are going to get valuable leads, because that's one item. How you are going to get, you can buy, and I think it's not going to work, but you can.
When you say lead, like when I think of what a lead to me is a qualified, this is going somewhere opportunity. Are you asking where do they buy lists of people that they can call, or where are you going to find leads? You're going to make the leads. You're going to buy a list.
Okay, so where you are going to be able to start having a list, what you can start calling.
Okay, there's a couple of different ways that you can find lists, and honestly, they're all garbage. So, I mean, we buy from Dun & Bradstreet. We buy about 300,000 contacts annually from them. We have a subscription, so it costs us next to nothing to pull a list. If you're buying fewer leads than that, it'll be a little pricier per lead. But I mean, if you want to go out and buy a list of 1,000 contacts in your area, that's fairly simple to do, and you can drill down right down to what verticals you want to buy that information in. So if you go to Hoover's or Dun & Bradstreet or Info USA or Data.com or any of those
Bigger players.
let's call them crowdsourced list
Yeah.
providers, companies where people are either providing their own data to make that list better, or other people, other sales reps are uploading data to make those lists better. You've got the ability to buy data in chunks of 100 or of 1,000. It's going to probably cost you anywhere from 15 cents to $1 a name, depending on whether
Yeah.
or not they have email addresses. There's going to be a lot of labor intensive work to kind of create that perfect list.
Yep.
I'd say from a time perspective, all you want to do is put in your postal code and pull out everything that's in that postal code, with the exception of any vertical that you absolutely do not want. So if you don't want to work with government,
Okay.
pull that SIC or NAICS classification out of the list and don't buy it. But really, it'll take you 2 hours to mess around with your list, or it'll take you a second to just buy all of the data and then have somebody pick through it a little bit at a time. So depending on what your time is worth, like I always think about opportunity cost when it comes to things like lists. What is my time worth? What could I bill out at for the next 2 hours? Well, if I make, if I charge my clients $150 an hour and it's going to take me 2 hours of looking
Checking
one by
one by
one through contacts, just buy the list, buy the whole list, download it, and then send it over to your admin to begin pulling out the stuff that you don't want. Don't worry about buying 100 extra contacts that you didn't want. That only cost you $2. You're fine.
And basically, like, okay, let's say I have a list and I make this effort. I pretty much know the local businesses, so pretty much I'm going to have like a long list and a short list, whatever. And and just give me some number because I think
Like how many calls do you have to make before you actually sell something?
it's exactly.
You're not going to like it. You're not going to like the number. Everyone's just going to hang up right now. We make about 1,000 calls for every one sales appointment that we schedule here. So 1,000 outbound dials to get to one decision maker. Now remember that a dial could mean a lot of things. A dial could be somebody hanging up. A dial could be a wrong number. A dial could go right to voicemail, but assume that you're going to dial the phone 1,000 times before you get the opportunity to present your services.
Holy
As we get better at cold calling, so for every 100 and right now, for every 180 people we speak to, we schedule a sales appointment.
So every 180 call, you get
Every 180 decision makers that we talk to, on average, result in one sales appointment. Now, you know what? Sometimes that's all you need, right? If you were going to get a 50-seat opportunity every time you made 180 calls, I'd take that action all day long.
Yeah, but like for that, I'm just wondering, like it's really tough because you have to work for days to get a list, clean out the list, get the numbers right, get this whole thing ready. Then you need to have, of course, some kind of process. So you need a system like where you make notes, and I'm not saying a CRM or whatever, but like
if you're only going to make 10 calls a day, you don't need a system. Right, where you need a system is when you're going to make 1,000 calls a day. But if you, as a business owner, make 10 calls a day, you don't need anything fancy to track that. Get yourself a pen. You're fine.
Yeah, but okay. So my question, if you say I have to do like 180 calls to get somebody, like to have a meeting, that's a month worth of 10 calls per day for a month to get one meeting per month, and that's not gonna help me because I'm going to have like at least 4 or 5 meetings to have a call. So in this case, I have that's terrifying. I make 10 calls per day, and I'm going to have one client for after 4 months.
After 4 months?
Yeah, because it's going to be like 4 meetings to get one closed, whatever. You told me, 1,000.
That's a pretty decent closing ratio, 1 out of 4.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If it's wrong.
So when you think about being, as a business owner, is your time best spent cold calling? Probably not. But there are warmer ways to cold call as a business owner.
Okay.
What I would do is create my own, like as a business owner, before you start cold calling, you want to exhaust your current network. Right? So cold calling here might mean going through everybody that you're doing business with. Have you asked everybody that you're doing business with to provide you with referrals? Have you gone through their LinkedIn profiles and made a list of all the people that they're connected to and decided which ones you'd really like to talk to? And then gone to that client and said, hey, we're trying to grow our business this year. I had the opportunity to review your connections on LinkedIn. There are 10 people in there that I'd really like to meet. I think we could really bring some value to their company. Here are those 10 people. And by the way, I went out of my way to write this testimonial for you. And it outlines everything we did for your company over the last couple of years. And if you're in agreement with everything on here, you know what, just sign the testimonial. And then I'm going to send it to these 10 people. And hopefully we're going to have a conversation. You want to do that first. So, how many clients do you have right now? Do you have 50 clients? Have you asked all 50 of them for 10 referrals? That's where you're going to begin. And as a business owner, that's where your time is best spent. If you're going to do cold calling, it's going to be a long go. And if you have nothing to do but cold calling, you're going to be fine. But if you've got to stop and put out client fires in the middle of your cold calling day, you're never going to be able to build the pipeline that you need to make cold calling. Like 100% cold, I bought a list off of Hoover's and now I'm going to call everybody on it type calling.
Carrie, it's really interesting what you're saying, because what it gives to me is like that is no free lunch kind of thing, right? So
there is no free lunch.
and there is no like cut corners and stuff like that. If you want to grow your business, if you want to sell, either way you can put a lot of effort there. Even it's like inbound marketing, you have to do lots of content, and after a while it's going to take like visitors and whatever. Like it's a year work for building up something. With cold calling, with your network, anything what you do, if you don't make it seriously, is just make nothing. So it's like, how to say, if I'm half-hearted doing inbound marketing, just even don't do anything, right? If you don't half-hearted do cold calling or networking, just don't do at all, because it doesn't make any change.
Done is better than perfect in that situation, right? If you set out to create the perfect marketing strategy, you will never start marketing, right? There's never going to be a perfect anything. You're not going to have a perfect cold calling campaign to launch. You're not going to have a perfect inbound marketing campaign. If you spend all of your time planning your marketing campaigns and no time doing any marketing, you're going to go out of business pretty quickly.
Yeah, but what I try to figure out here is the following, and that's somehow I think is an industry problem, that the managed services, sorry if I hurt anybody, but they haven't learned to sell, really, because how they grown their business. Joe said Jack that I have a shitty IT, and Jack was saying, you know what, that's the guy Steve is doing for us. And Jack and Steve had a meeting and was closed like 90% of the time, 90%, right? Why? Because Joe did the sales for Steve. So as this whole industry gets commoditized, there are no sales processes, right? We have, or they have, network assessment and how to close the deals if they have a problem and stuff like that. That's okay. But other than that, most of the managed services doesn't really have a sales process, or what I should say, what's the next step, or whatever. And that's terrifying. They don't really have those things because it didn't have to have that to have a successful MSP in the past. You had great delivery and referrals, and that's all.
Right? They're not a business development strategy.
Exactly, but it was
and
so
they cost
huge.
You nothing.
But it was
they absolutely cost you nothing.
Yeah, so right now everybody has to understand that if you want to sell, you still have to work on those items really heavily. So, like, I had a call yesterday, Carrie. Like, a guy was saying to me that, back like 3-4 years ago, he said, I got at least 2 or 3 new clients per month. 2 or 3 new clients per month with nothing. Like a basic website. That was a phone, so they can pick up. That was the sales. And right now, he said, we haven't landed a client for 18 months.
18?
18 months they haven't landed a new client. And that's not because they had some disruption, or they had something like a gossip that they don't work well. No, the need and the referrals are not working that way, because for referral you need a problem. And if I'm doesn't really have a problem because my internet is go and work, why I should refer to my IT guy to somebody who nobody has the problem right now? And that's the fact. Many services are somehow victims of our own success, right? Because the industry solved this whole infrastructure problem, everything is running smoothly, let's say, and where to go from here? And that's like what you are saying, like creating the script is like creating what's my value. Why I even should start to have a conversation with somebody, like what is my differentiation against.
But even that's not as important as timing and luck, right? I want to tell you a story. So
Okay.
This year I got sick of managed service providers giving me excuses for why cold calling wouldn't work, right? Like, so I've just built my own MSP. I mean, we don't manage any endpoints, we don't actually offer any services, but I went to Vertical Action and I had them build me a managed services website. I launched in 2 cities and I just started cold calling for my own MSP because I wanted to see, like, what can you do if you know nothing about managed services? I failed the ITIL certification. I tried to take it last year. I failed it. I have no idea what you guys actually do. But you know what?
That's funny.
2 weeks into my own managed services company, I landed a 130 seat opportunity and a 38 seat opportunity, and I had to pass them off to a local managed service provider because I don't actually have an MSP. But all the rest of it is kind of garbage, right? Like we have a website. There's no address on our website. There's no city on our website. There's nothing on our website but a phone number and a list of all the same things that every managed service provider in the market already does.
That's
right?
funny.
It's really, cold calling is timing and luck. So the more calls you make, the luckier that you're going to get, but you also need to be mindful of timing. So if you're calling an organization and they just signed an agreement and there's 3 years to go on that agreement, what you need to do is that's where your process comes in. So we talked earlier and I said, all you need is a pen. But if you're going to start managing a sales pipeline, now you need to mark down that this company is going to be looking for a new provider potentially in about 2.5 years. So if you think about the ROI on telemarketing, it is not easy to measure. You can't measure it on day 34 or day 92 or day 267. It's probably going to be a year or 2 years before the cold calling that you're doing this month begins to pay off. Because really what you're doing is setting little reminders for yourself. You're going to make 1,000 phone calls, and of those 1,000, let's say 200 people tell you to get lost, don't ever call me again. And 200 of them are not a good fit, and 200 of them are in an agreement with somebody that they quite like and maybe won't make a change, and then 200 of them are moderately unhappy but in an agreement that they're not going to break, and then it goes down and down and down and down, and then eventually you find the 1 or 2 that are really unhappy right now, and it's a perfect time for them to make a change, and they're moving offices and they're Windows 2003 and they're whatever, right? Like, it becomes the perfect storm of managed services requirement. But that's luck, right? There's like, you didn't know about that lead. Nobody said, hey, call that guy, they're moving offices. Like, you just stumbled into that opportunity. And the more calls you make, the more likely it is that you're going to stumble into more of those. But the real work with cold calling comes in not in those, dropped from the sky magic opportunities, because I would love to get more of those. It comes from you remembering that in 2.5 years, this guy's contract is renewing. So contract end date, that's a huge thing when you're cold calling. The more you can learn about your market as you cold call, the more opportunity that you have to create more of those drop out of the sky moments.
But that's like, but like you have to really call, like how many calls you can do like per day. So I'm moving, like, to be honest, I wouldn't really suggest to anyone like a CEO to start cold calling, because it's like, you can do.
Look, if you're just starting your business,
you can do something, but okay.
You don't have any clients, you don't have anything else to do. Get on the phone.
Yeah, but you can either leverage what you are saying, like your existing, network, your LinkedIn stuff. So these probably the low-hanging fruits, but you have to go out of your traditional thing, and then you start doing that. But it's it's, if these are the numbers, you have to commit yourself like 1 to 2 hours every day to call, and get these things done. So that's why I'm saying like or asking like, if you like manage somebody else, not you, what you can expect, how many calls they can do, what they need to make it straight, who, because like how you are going to.
That's a good discussion topic. So here's what we see most often when a managed service provider decides that they're going to hire a sales rep,
Yeah,
right? So if you think about most of the MSP clients that I have, none of them were MBA graduates who decided that managed services was going to be a really lucrative spot to launch a business in. Most of them were working in IT and they got disgruntled, and all you need is a resentment and a coffee pot to start your own managed services company. And they decided, I'm going to do this, I can do it better. They stole a couple of clients from the guy that they were working for. They got their wife to answer the phone, and somehow they've created this awesome managed services company that grew on a referral basis, right? And then the referrals stopped coming in, and now they're like, okay, what are we going to do? We have to start driving our business somehow. Okay, we're going to hire a sales rep. But what they didn't consider was that since they were never a sales rep, they have no idea how to identify the qualities that they're going to need in that person. They don't know how to manage them. They don't know how to give them the tools that they're going to need to be successful. So not just the moral support or the motivation or the management that a sales rep, especially a young new sales rep, and that's what most of these companies are looking for, right? They want to go out and find the $26,000 a year diamond in the rough. That's what they're hoping for. So they sit down at a couple of interviews, and this guy comes in and he razzle-dazzles them with stories about previous employers and how great he was and what happened and all the money that they made for them. And I swear half of them don't even check their references. And they're just like, yeah, that sounds great. And they don't even think, like, why is this guy making a vertical move? This guy sounds like a superstar. How come he's willing to work for $34,000 a year? If he can do what he says he can, why isn't he currently engaged somewhere? And they hire somebody hopeful that this is going to pan out for them. Although, like, really, if they step back and looked at it, they'd be like, why is this guy how come this guy is going to come work for me? He's an Oracle all-star. He worked for Dell. He did this, right? Like, what's he doing here?
How we get this luck, right?
Yeah. And you kind of get razzle-dazzled by it, and you hire them, and 6 months later, you realize that they haven't done anything.
Yeah. That's.
I think that's the most. Measure them.
That's the most scary part. Is like if you can't put together really the whole system around that, like. Motivation packages like KPIs, scripts, and everything. What this guy is going to say? The script is not working. This is not how I can do. So because I'm a CEO, I don't.
ConnectWise is really difficult to work in. That's why I don't also want.
Yeah, so
there's always an excuse.
And that's the problem.
Remember that sales reps, like, they get paid to tell you what you want to hear. That's how they earn their living. If I can't talk you into hiring me, I'm not a very good sales rep, right?
I get it.
So
yeah, it's smart.
But
so actually, like that's kind of hard thing, and so what to do? Like the other thing, like of course, everybody can consider outsourcing this stuff, like and how you see outsourcing can work for a managed service. What's the pros, cons? Like, you have lots of clients and you have successful clients, I guess, with you as well, but probably you have unsuccessful clients as well who wasn't able to make this thing with you as well. Like, it's always there are something like.
So we currently have, I would say, we have 30 active markets right now. So we are live in 30 cities, and one of them is not doing well. So out of the 30 cities that we're engaged in right now, we've got one that we wish was performing a little bit better, but everyone else is performing consistently. And it wasn't always that way. We really had to work towards that. And a lot of it came into process training. How do we create better callers? How do we hire better callers? We're only a couple of years old, and we came into an industry that we knew nothing about. We had to learn how to sell it. We had to make some mistakes. We did. Although I think if you talk to anybody that we made mistakes on, they'll say that we made it right. We tried our best to.
Because
if somebody's not working well on our roster, we don't want them on our roster anymore. But there are some things so if an organization is going to look at outsourcing, the first thing you want to look at is, what's the company's track record like? And are they going to let you talk to anybody in their client? Like, anybody can send you a reference for the client that they knocked it out of the park for. right? Like if I was going to send you to check my references
Yeah,
right
sure.
now, there are 3 companies, the ones that we get like 4 or 5 appointments a week for every week. Those aren't typical clients. Those are our outliers.
Yeah.
But if you only talk to those companies and then you come back to us expecting that that's what your program's going to be like, and it's not like that, you're not getting. So we
Yeah.
try to kind of run the gamut. Here's a company that it worked really well for. Here's a company that performs average. Like this is what most of our campaigns look like. And here's one where it bombed spectacularly. Go talk to him too, because I really want people to have
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
understanding of what realistic expectations are going into a program. So thinking about like what is it going to look like, a lot of people start, the first thing they want to know is, well, what's your cost per lead, what's your cost per appointment? And that's not really an accurate way to measure the performance of a telemarketing campaign. So if I looked at, if we were putting 6 appointments in front of you and out of those 6 every month 0 of them were converting,
That's not.
I
Yeah.
would argue that it doesn't matter what
Yeah.
your cost per appointment is, they're all shitty appointments. If we only put 2, if every week or every month, let's say every month, I put 2 opportunities
You
into your
can close.
pipeline and both of them were 50-seat opportunities and both of them closed, you are going to pay me until the dawn of time. Who cares what your cost per appointment is?
Hmm.
So you really have to look less at like, well, that sounds like it's, is it like $600 an appointment or $800 an appointment? You're not paying for appointments. You're paying for somebody to do their job all day, every day. You're paying for someone to do the stuff that you don't want to do, you can't do, you aren't going to do.
Yeah.
So
And
somebody has to build that sales pipeline for you. And if you're not going to do it, you can't hire someone to do it. You'll eventually end up with someone like us doing it.
yeah. And actually, like what I was thinking is the same idea that. It's my question can be like, can I do it better? Can I have more, or do I have more experience? Can I hire somebody better? Do I want to put
Look, if you can do it
all the
in-house, you should always do it in-house,
Yep.
right? If you have the ability
Yeah, that's the question.
and
But that's
the time
but Carrie, like,
and the interest.
yeah, but if you don't have like a 20, 30 people company, you don't have the management structure, you can do that. Like if you have a 10 people company, you don't really have that mature, management structure which can make a sales rep perform well. That's the problem. If you have a, luck and you have somebody like really doing something really well, that's okay. But other than that, it's going to be like only luck. If you have a good person who is self-motivated, that's okay. But most of the time, I have these people like changing all the time sales reps. Why? Because they can't manage that role. It's not about somebody like the same idea you said like 25 grand. Yeah, that's not working. So and it's not working on marketing either. Like I have a little marketing lady out of the school. She's going to skyrocket our website and everything, and this just doesn't work that way, right? So yeah, so I think that was really valuable for me to learn all this stuff. Like if you have like 3 tips for like an MSP, I want to get more leads about cold calling. What the 3 hints you can say like?
Are you ready? Answer your phones. Answer your phones.
Really?
That is tip number 1. I can't tell you. So our company, we call, I want to say 100 or so MSPs every day. We have a sales team that does nothing but call MSPs.
Yeah.
And I would say that 80% of them send their calls right to voicemail. Nobody picks up the phone. You get a dial 1 for sales or dial 2 for admin or whatever the voice directory is. And when I press 1 to go to the sales department, I get a recording that says, "You've reached sales.
Oh.
Please leave a message." Beep.
And that's all.
Like, I have a problem. I want to talk to someone now. So if you're spending all this money on inbound marketing or outbound marketing or SEO or Google AdWords, or I don't know where you're spending your marketing money, but if nobody picks up the phone when it answers, you are not going to sell anything. So my first tip is always pick up the phone. An answering service costs nothing. If you can't sit in your office all day, hire somebody to answer your phone. Second tip, let's see. Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Right? You can start calling today, right now, with everything that you have at your disposal. You don't have to go buy a fancy CRM system. You don't have to magically figure out how ConnectWise works. Just start calling
Yeah,
people.
I like that idea that the luck and how you said that, like as you make more calls, you get like more lucky.
Luckier?
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And the third one would be consistent.
Mechanism.
So whatever time that you have to devote to cold calling right now, honor that time. Put it in your calendar the same as you would put an appointment with a client in. And if you can afford to do an hour a day of cold calling, put it in your calendar, turn everything
Yeah.
else off, and commit to doing that. And if an hour is all you've got, then use that hour as efficiently as possible. And don't get distracted. Like that is your business development time, and that is gold for you. That's how you're going to grow your business
Yeah,
this
but
year. If you've made a commitment to doing it, keep your commitment.
yeah, but that's when the procrastination is going to kick in. The important stuff is going to there. So it's like I know how's it working because if you don't want to do anything, you are going to be distract yourself. So what I learned here today is like cold calling is okay. So it can work. So you proved to me based on that it's something can work if there are circumstances behind. So the script, the process, somehow the methodology and the work behind, it can work, and I can't say anything against that. What I feel like is, to be honest, and probably I'm a little bit more pessimistic than you, that if you don't do at least half good, I think the result will be nearly nothing. That's what my personal experience was like. So if you do something really well, and if you put the
Like you're going to be lousy at it when you start. Everybody is. Like nobody picks up the phone for the first
I
time
know,
and sounds like a rock star. But if you keep at
I
it,
know,
there's no reason why in
Carrie,
3 months you can't sound as good at the phone as
the
we
only
do.
thing, the commitment, you said, the commitment. So if you don't make any judgment before like 2 3 months, so you make a decision, that's going to be my strategy. It doesn't matter how you start and how efficient you are, how CRM you are using, but say I'm going to commit 1 hour per day for 3 months, and then I make decision. Because like before that, it's going to be the first 2 3 weeks will be a disaster. That's for sure. And
You'd be surprised how quickly the quarter is
yeah, yeah,
over.
it's usually that's pretty quickly. So awesome, Carrie. That's thank you very much for this, wisdom, and yeah, and really like I think that can help for most people who are struggling with this process, because like I think they spend like 6 to 9 months to figure out that they have to spend a little bit more time on that, and it's the 9 months is gone. And it's not because they don't have leads. The problem is that they don't have a client here who would be able to pay monthly recurring service that much money. So saving time and don't do these trial and errors. I think that's the best way to build your business and learn from others' mistakes.
Well, thanks for asking me to join you today. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you, Carrie. See you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.